Let's talk how long it's going to take for you to become a professional sports bettor. And what I mean by professional sports bettor is someone who bets on sports for a living. There's tens of thousands of people around the world that do this, and it is possible to do it. But when I say there's tens of thousands of people, that only represents sub 1% of the betting public, right? So although it may sound like a lot, it's absolutely tiny compared to the amount of people who do not bet for a living, right? And a lot of those people do try to bet for a living. So it's not an easy job to get. If you are a professional full-time gambler, you're in the sub 1% of betting public of the world. You're in sub 1% job in the entire world, but it is possible. And I'm going to tell you my timeline now, and then hopefully it will help you on your own timeline. Because a lot of people come to me and they say, James, I've been betting for 2-3 years. Is it possible to go full-time? And I can only ever speak from my experience, right? Like I can only tell you what I've learned in my experience. I can't tell you what Billy Waters may have done, right? Who's another full-time gambler, probably the most well-known one in the world. I can't tell you what these personalities on Twitter have done. I can't tell you these big gamblers who are supposed to be these massive guys in America. I can't tell you about what they have experienced. I can only tell you about my own journey, right? And journeys differ massively in each country. Because a lot of the gambling content you will read is from America, right? But I've never lived in America. I've never gambled in America. And I've been full-time at many times in my career. And a lot of the time that I've been betting, the only income I've ever got, or the only income I had at the time, was through gambling. But I've never lived in America. And a lot of the ways I bet are completely different from people that bet in America. So I'm just going to tell you my experience with gambling. I ain't going to go full in depth and tell you my story. I've done that on other videos, but I'm just going to stick to the timeline piece, right? So let's break it down very simply. For the first, I'd say about 3-4 years of my gambling journey, I wasn't looking into how to make money from gambling. I was just gambling for the sake of gambling because it was something I do. It was something you do where I'm from. It's just a normal thing. Everyone bets. It's not a big deal. And also because I was heavily involved in like the greyhound racing industry. I watch horse racing a lot. I like football. So I just betted on right? And I never actually once looked into why I made the bet, how I made the bet, if the bet was good. I never looked at it like that was a good bet or that was a bad bet. I literally just bet because I thought someone was going to win, right? And it was mainly football. And then it went to horse racing as well and greyhound racing. But for a lot of the time, early on, I was betting on football, horse racing and greyhound racing. And I wasn't learning anything. I was losing a lot of bets. I was winning a lot of bets. I was breaking even, probably losing a little bit. And after about 3 or 4 years, I said, all right, it's been long enough. Let me try and actually learn something now. And then I started looking into sports betting and learning sports betting, right? And we fast forward about 5 years in now, 5-6 years. This is when I actually started to take some control over my gambling and started to research things, like I said, started to track certain bets, started to think about why I was making these bets, started to bet on not only who I thought was going to win, but also where I thought there was some value, right? I used to bet on certain horses because I thought, okay, the horse, it might not win, but it shouldn't be 20-1. And oftentimes I would back it each way. So even if it came in the frame, first, second, third, or maybe even fourth, depending on how many horses there are, I would still win money, right? So yeah, like 5-6 years in, I started to learn a little bit more. And then I started to really dedicate myself to learning. And around 7-8 years in, I started to turn a profit. And I started to do well. And this was like my first 1 or 2 years betting on MMA. I instantly turned a profit. But that was because I took a lot of my experience from prior MMA betting to MMA betting. So I was able to turn a profit quite quickly on MMA because I had already been betting for 7-8 years, right? So now we're talking like 8-9 years in, and I'm starting to turn a profit on MMA. I'm turning a profit, I'm earning money. Now we're talking like 10-11 years in. At this point, I'm making money legitimately. I'm making money most months. I'm doing well, and I'm still learning heavily, right? At this point, I basically learned about 10% of the stuff I eventually ended up learning, which is kind of crazy because that means I've been betting for 10 years and my knowledge base is only 10% of where it is at right now as I speak to you in this video. Right, so 90% of the growth came in the last 4 or 5 years. 10% of the growth came in the first 10 years. And that's what you will see happen in your own sports betting journey a lot. It's like you'll be betting for 5 years or 2 years or however long it is, right? You'll be betting for a long time and you'll know a few things. You'll think you'll know everything, of course, but you won't. You'll know a few things. And then within like 1 year, your knowledge base will triple or quadruple within like 1 year, because things often snowball. Once you learn something, once you learn that there's more to learn, once you understand the game of sports betting a lot more, then things snowball and you quickly start to learn a lot more. And that's what happened to me, you know. So coming at you now about 15, 16 years into my gambling journey, about 15 years into my gambling journey, I have learned the most I've ever learned in the last 5 years. In the 10 years before that, which is a whole decade, double the time, I learned a good amount, but nowhere near the amount I've learned in the last 5 years. And that's because I've learned through trial and error. That's because I've actually dedicated myself to learning during that time, whereas the first 10 years, for the most part, 7, 8 years, whatever, it was just bullshitting, willy-nilly. I wasn't really trying to learn anything. So that's my timeline, guys. It took me about 10 years to start turning a profit, 15 years to start making some real money. Well, not 15, because I've been doing it for the last few years, but let's say it's 15 years now. And at this point in my career, I make a lot of money. There's been multiple days, there's been multiple 5-hour periods this year where I've won over $100,000 in 5 hours, right? I've done it on multiple UFC events. I've also lost massive amounts on UFC events, 50 grand, 60 grand this year, but I'm at the position where I can lose that now. I'm at the position where I can bet and win that much now. And that's because I've dedicated my whole life to it. So, you know, the whole video is basically just to tell you my own personal timeline, because I can only tell you about my personal timeline. But hopefully it will help you in your future, and hopefully it will put it into perspective for you that you might not earn $1 million straight away. It might take you 10 years like it did me. It might take you 8 years like it did me to turn any sort of profit, you know, but hopefully this will show you the reality of sports betting, because a lot of people speak about fast wins, quick wins, and that is possible in sports betting. One of the things I hate the most about sports betting is that you can literally make a parlay the first ever time you make a parlay, and it can win you $1 million. So it gives a lot of people the false sense of security that gambling is easy when it's not, right? But like I said, I'm trying to give realistic and honest reviews and analysis about sports betting, rather than you're gonna be a millionaire in 24 hours like a lot of the other sleazeballs tell you, right? A lot of the other touts, a lot of the other tipsters, a lot of the other people in the space tell you this because they want to sell something to you. I'm being completely honest and telling you it was a long time for me to be at this position, but it is possible, and that's it really. I'm kind of ranting at this point, so I'm going to leave it, but that's my timeline for sports betting. Hopefully you can do it. I will say as well, one caveat before we leave: you can do it sooner than me, right? Just because I'm saying it's 15 years for me now, or 10 years before I started to turn a profit, 8 years, whatever, you can do it sooner than me, right? I was probably one of the long ones, but you ain't going to do it in 1 year, right? I took it 10 years. You're gonna do it quicker than me, probably, if you're watching videos like this, because I never was. I had to learn all myself, basically. So you can learn quicker than 10 years, but you ain't gonna learn it in 1 year, right? Or 2 years. Probably gonna take you at least half of the time I do it. That's probably the quickest you'll be able to learn, which is 5 years. So that's it, boys. I'll be back with another video shortly, tomorrow or something. And good luck on your bets this weekend. I'll see you in the next video.